Going on, folks? Welcome back to Physical Education with Coach. I am Coach Colin Carroll, and currently I have our Phase 5 fitness and wellness data to report for everybody. So I've started off with just a nice big picture here of what our wellness scores were from the month of August, which was when we started, all the way through this last month. So we just finished last Friday. I just collected these scores from the individual students, compiled them into means, and that is essentially what you're looking at right here. Okay, the majority of the year, which is about 8 months. We'll get another 2 months of wellness data at the end of the year, followed by one more period of physical fitness data. So we'll have a total of 6 periods there and a total of 10 months of wellness data. Starting to look up in a couple of categories, as you can tell here. If we're looking at that top blue line, which is the mood, you can see that there's a slight trend upwards, even though the total trend for the semester has been down. If we're looking at that green line, that's our soreness level. We could see that the students are experiencing a little more physiological stress. The overall trend for the semester has been down, but it continues to move down, unlike mood, which is starting to move up. Maybe that's just, again, some rater error, but it could also be that the students are starting to work a little bit harder because it is coming down to crunch time. It's the end of quarter 3, beginning of quarter 4. Students are starting to be fearful of what their grades are going to look like at the end. So typically around this time, they start to work a little bit harder to make those fitness scores look a little bit better and to make their grade just move up, because they all have goals of at least graduating high school for the most part and moving on with their life. Especially in the freshmen, this is about the time. I know it's sad, but this is about the time in the year for freshmen that they realize that they're not just going to be able to move forward with an F like they potentially could in the first 8 years of education. They start to realize that their grades are based off points and their graduation is based off points. And so a lot of them start to take it serious at the end of the second semester in their first year. I warned them about that in the beginning, but it's just something that has to be learned. It's experience, and I totally understand that. If we look at that third line, which is the red one, that's our energy level. We could see that that's progressively declining as well. Again, that could go along with that physiological stress. And we'll see a lot of these factors seem to play off of each other. The yellow line, which is almost in unison with the red line, that's our sleep quality. We see that that's been down for the semester, and there's a slight movement upward, but the overall trend for this semester is definitely down. Probably again has to do with the physiological stress, the soreness levels, the overall mood level being down. All those factors can be in unison. We see the stress levels, which is the blue line with the triangles. That started down and then it trended upward for the semester, but we've now trended back down to our kind of where our semester average is. So we could see that that's going to continue to get worse, I would imagine. Like I mentioned, with students realizing that it's a different point system at the high school level. It's very stressful. And you got to remember, this is a compilation of freshman data along with some upperclassmen as well. So not only do you have freshmen coming to the realization that their scores, their grades are important in high school for graduating, but you have seniors that are trying to finish that last push and get out of here, make sure all of their scores and all their grades count positively towards their graduation. And then that last line, diet, which has been the worst of all of these wellness metrics. I think there's a lot of qualities that can lead to that, but that's besides this presentation. We see it trended down for this semester and it's stayed down. It's slightly moving up, but it's still a lot lower than it should be. So I think that is very interesting, because you can't expect them to perform well physically if psychologically they aren't getting the, let's just say, love and compassion they need. Diet is one of those things. Here's our changes for height. we noticed that at the end of phase 4, we had a large growth spurt. I think that mostly is due to the freshmen. Okay, and that growth spurt again replicated itself in phase 5. We thought maybe that would have been some rater error on the student's part, but it looks as if that is held solid. There's a slight decline, but it's not significantly different. Our weight, we had a slight weight gain of a couple pounds in phase 5 compared to phase 4, which this is kind of conflicting with the diet data, so you can tell there probably is quite a bit of user error here, or we just have really intriguing data. Looking at BMI, again, that drastic change in the height and kind of the stagnant nature of the weight with this group of students has allowed us to show a decrease in BMI. Probably wasn't due to the fitness testing. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I did my best to implement the best interventions I possibly could, but there's a lot of growth and maturation that happens in these 4 years. So we can't just claim all the credit as practitioners. A lot of that is due to just the students' biological changes. Push-ups, we saw a decline once we shifted into the second semester. So really good progress in the first semester. In the second semester now through the 5th phase, we're showing about the same numbers. It's not significantly different from phase 4 at the beginning of the semester. Modified pull-ups, looks like my data did not transfer over, but it's the same thing as we saw in the push-ups. We had a pretty similar performance in phase 5 as we did to phase 4. Come over here to the flexed arm hang. We've actually seen a consistent rise in flexed arm hang, which I think I talked about this last time, but this could show positive implications and have a positive correlation with that consistency of the weight as well as the consistent decline in the BMI, because we are showing an increase in what would technically be considered muscle endurance. Okay, not aerobic endurance, but muscle endurance seems to have a positive trend with these students, which is usually what you lose when you're sedentary. So maybe these students aren't as sedentary as we think they are. Sit and reach had a big boost. Again, could have been user error. I'm going to throw that out every single time because I think that's definitely a consideration and a limitation to having self-reported data. I can only see and do so much. We had a slight bump in the trunk lift compared to what we did at the beginning of semester 2. You can see that the overall trend is still low compared to semester 1, but it does seem like we could have a potential return back to what our peak was for semester 1. These don't shock me. Physical fitness testing for the mile. I think one of the things I tried to do with this second semester is I implemented much more running activity in the online workouts. So we did a running workout at least 2 times a week, 1 to 2 times a week. And so running ability can take a little bit of time to manifest itself. And so I think we're finally seeing the culmination of those workouts coming to an improvement in performance. Again, phase 4, which is that giant spike at the top, could have been rater error. I could have also calculated it incorrectly. But it seems as if we've at least returned to baseline from the beginning of the year's measurements, which I believe is positive. I also have a lot of athletes, so this could be a positive reflection of their training in athletics since athletics has returned. This is the first physical fitness testing we've done since athletics returned to campus. So there's a lot of factors that are uncontrollable in a high school student. That's just how it is. We got a nice V curve here for the mile walk. We were showing tremendous potential in mile walk ability or aerobic capacity with respect to the mile walk. I don't know if you could say aerobic capacity, but Since then, we've shown a tremendous decrease in the walk. And again, I'm hoping that that's because there's been more emphasis put on the running, so more students have decided to test the run than the walk. If you look at the numbers, every single kid tested the mile run and the mile walk, which is what I recommended. But I think it's interesting that we've seen an increase in the running ability and a decrease in the walking ability. And I think kids have just taken less time to focus on walking because they're more focused on running this time around. Here's another interesting one. We did have really good data on the modified pacer, which, if you remember, was that 12-minute, 20-meter pacer run, as many laps as possible. And as soon as we started focusing on running more, this is another one that started to suffer. So right at that fourth phase, you see, is when the big dip started in the decline, and we saw that same decline happening for our fifth phase. And then our last graph we have here, I actually forgot to collect data for phase 4. So what you're seeing here is the first 3 dots are semester 1, and then the second dot, the large decline, is semester 2. As you could imagine, with sedentary ability or sedentary lifestyle, you should see a decline even in some of these muscle endurance numbers. But what confuses me is I expected to see an increase in curl ups if there was also an increase in some of the other muscle endurance tests similar to this, which would have been the flexed arm hang. And then sometimes you can see an increase specifically in core musculature with an increase in aerobic ability, because there's a lot of isometric activity during aerobic activity. So that's all I have for you guys this time around. We have one more bout of testing. Hopefully we're going to boost these numbers up to our semester 1 peaks so we can say that we did a fantastic job this year. If not, you got the rest of your life to stay fit. So use this as knowledge, use this as power, and use this as motivation to keep yourself moving for a lifetime. Thank you, everybody. This is Physical Education with Coach, and I hope you have a wonderful day.